Hey there, this is just going to be a simple tutorial on how to make first-person models and animations for use in the Unreal Development Kit, and then how to make a very simple weapon that uses that model in its animations. So to start off with, go to benbear.net/scripting.zip, written in big here, and I'll link to it in the description as well. You get a nice zip full of resources that I'll be using in this tutorial. Create a folder for this in my documents, call it something like My First Weapon for UDK. Just drag everything in there for now and load up Maya. Although I'm focusing on Maya in this tutorial, the knowledge can pretty much easily be applied to 3ds Max and hopefully any other 3D program. I've left the included gun model as an OBJ, so you can import that into pretty much anything. So go to your folder and import the gun model. It's just a sort of old gun model I had kicking around that I made. It's not finished. And you'll also need some first-person arms. Now I'm going to assume that you've already got a properly made, fully rigged pair of arms on your character for your game, but because I don't right now, I'm just going to get the one from Mudbox. So load up the default Mudbox man, press page down to set him to the lowest subdivision level, and send him to Maya as a new scene. And we can go back and shut down Mudbox because we're done with that. And then I'll import my gun again. Some useful shortcuts I'm using here are W, E and R to move, rotate and scale. Then the next thing you have to do is to sort of scale this up to the correct size so it fits in his hand properly. I'm holding V to snap it to his hand. This really isn't going to be a great looking view model, it's just to teach you the very basic principles. So just rotate it very roughly so it looks like he's more or less holding it. Really wouldn't worry about precision here, just maybe roughly make it so that his finger's about right scale for the trigger. Rotate it slightly. Alright, that looks good enough for now. So now we need to delete everything on the guy apart from his arms. Do that by simply selecting an area like this, then double clicking the chunks you want to get rid of, then pressing delete. You probably want to make the cuts a little less rough for your final version. I'm going to make some very basic joints so we can move the arms around. So I'll do this by going to Skeleton, Joint Tool, and dragging down roughly to the elbow and to the hand, and I'm going to drag one more bone here at the sort of muzzle of the gun, and this will become important later because that's where the muzzle flash will come from. Sort of fire effects, like any laser beams will be drawn from there, anything similar. Then go to the side viewport and using the insert key, just tap it once you've got to sort of move the joints so that they match up in this viewport as well. And then I'll turn on X-ray joints under shading in the perspective viewport. You can see that's turned out pretty much more or less where the joints should be. As I said earlier, normally you'd properly have a sort of normal rig with controls for this sort of thing. Now create one more joint. Hold X to snap to the grid and create right in the centre. You only need one joint, it just always wants to create two at least. So, oh yeah, and don't forget to name your joints too. So this joint should be called something like arms_root, arms_upper arm, arm, hand, and this shouldn't be arms, this should be weapon underscore muzzle flash. Normally you'd have like more joints than just a muzzle flash. I'd probably put a nice joint here to rotate the cylinder, and I'll probably rig all these shells up so that they all fall out individually when it's reloading. Maybe make it so the trigger can bend, and the hammer and all that, but yeah, for this example, just going to have the muzzle flash working and the weapon being a static object. Also, don't forget to name your joints according to which arm they are. So this is upper arm underscore R, because it's his right, and I'll just append that to the end of every bone I've made so far. Now parent upper arm R, by selecting it and then selecting the root, so press P to do that, and then select your upper arm R again, and go to skeleton mirror joint. You want to be mirroring across the YZ axis. You want to be replacing underscore R with underscore L. You'll end up with an identical chain, but for the left side instead. So that here's forearm L, here's forearm R. Now we can delete the muzzle flash because he's not holding a weapon in that hand. Yeah, and now you've roughly got some good looking joints. Alright, now I'm going to set up a camera so that we know what we're animating to. To do that, go to Panels, Perspective, New. And then go to Panels and tear off a copy of this camera. And move it off to like somewhere else. Set its translations all to 0. And do the same with its rotations, and then in this top right viewport set that one back to perspective. Select your camera, scale out to be a bit bigger so you can see it. Now select the root bone of your arms, then select the arms themselves, go to skin, bind skin, smooth bind, and this is very basically rigged your arms up to sort of deforms the joints move, because in game all it will record is the movements of joints, not the movements of vertices. It's the same in pretty much any game's engine. Skin the revolver by pressing the little box next to smooth bind, but this time instead of doing it to the entire joint hierarchy, just do it to the selected joints, which will stop it sort of deforming. Like if I hadn't ticked that, when I'd have twisted that, the muzzle would have sort of bent into horrible shapes, and the wrist probably would have mucked up as well. So that's looking alright. Now, I can move the arms root down here, sort of near the camera. Mudbox's default man is rotated 180 degrees when importing to Maya for whatever reason. So just hold J with root selected, sort of snap rotations to 15 degrees or so, and then rotate it a clean 180 degrees. Anyway, now you've done that, make it so that all view, click the button in the bottom right which looks like a sort of load of red lines, change update view from active to all, playback speed from play every frame or whatever it is to other 30 in this box here. Save those settings because those are the settings that UDK uses for its animations by default. So your animations that you make in Maya will play at the same speed in UDK if you set that. Rotate the arm into more or less the correct position. There we go, you can see it's starting to come up in this view. And what this view actually is the first person view, what you'll see in game, because the camera's looking directly out from 0, 0, 0, which is what the camera in UDK does as well. Go to display render settings and set the image size here image size. We choose the full 1280 preset. That'll work for this. Press this button here, resolution gate, and it will like lop off the sides. Although the default UDK resolution is a 16:9 resolution, I think it's better to animate in a 4:3 ratio resolution, because that pretty much guarantees your view model will look good on any resolution, as opposed to just the one you're running at. Now I'm just going to mess around with my joint rotations for a bit to get it looking correct in first person. Might take a while, don't worry about it. Should probably try and keep it looking fairly normal in all views, if possible, but don't worry about that too much. As you can see, that's more or less looking good enough in our perspective, in our first person view camera. So yeah, we can save that now. So save that, create a new folder in your first weapon UDK folder, call it animations, and call this animation weapon underscore ref. Ref stands for reference, and it means that this will contain like where all the default joint positions and the way the geometry should move with the joints, the skinning. So now save another version of this, like with no changes at all, and call this one weapon underscore idle, and this is going to be our first animation. So in the bottom right, you want to set the end time of the animation to 16 frames. We'll probably do, because idle animation is just sort of a quick breathe, bobbing, up and down sort of motion. So go to frame 1, using the slider at the bottom, select the forearm and hold shift and press E to keyframe its rotation, and then go to frame 8 and make sure auto key's on. This is important. This button here, make sure this is red, or it won't record any rotations or movements you make on bones. So on frame 8 we'll rotate the arm down a bit to simulate the upper chest movement that would happen while breathing, or like the gun shaking a bit. Do it very slightly, even that might be too much. Very slight indeed. Just has to sort of be there, barely noticeably. Copy frame 1 by clicking it, right clicking, copy, go into the final frame, in this case 16, and paste again. Now you play this, it'll look like a very poor breathing animation. Now if this was actually a proper gun for a final game, you probably want to watch some reference videos or try and hold an object in front of yourself and notice how much your own arm moves, but just for the purposes of this tutorial video, this will do. So save this and go back to weapon underscore ref. Now we're going to create a firing animation in the exact same way. So select the bones that you want to keyframe again. I'm going to go for all of them. So first select the upper arm, shift and E, forearm, shift and D, then the hand, shift and D. Set the maximum, or set the end time to 12, I think we'll do for this. I'm going to make the sort of kick back from the firing be on frame 4, so it'll be quite a fast movement. And move the upper arm back slightly, and then move everything else sort of upwards, and then again I'll copy frame 1 to the end frame, frame 12, and when I play back you see I've got a very rough firing animation. Again, you'd want to really finesse that a bit more for a proper project, but for now I'm just going to save that out as weapon underscore fire. go back to ref again, and this is going to be the whole string animation. Well, in UDK it's called put down, so we'll call it put down, not holster, and that's just the animation that plays here, and then the next going to come up playing its draw animation. So all this animation has to do is, again, 12 seems to be a pretty good number for this sort of short animation, and we want it to dip down off screen. So I'll keyframe the forearm on frame 1, and then auto key on. I'll go to frame 12, rotate it off screen. It's probably best to rotate it a little further than it needs to be off screen. That way, if someone has like really strange resolution or a different field of view, it will still usually go off the bottom of their screen. So that's good enough. It's a very basic animation. Save that out as weapon underscore put down. And the draw animation, which is this played in reverse. So we'll make that by reversing the keyframes. So select the forearm, select frame 1, hold shift and click it, then middle click and drag it up to frame 11, just before the end frame. Click off the timeline, select the bone again, click frame 12, shift click it, middle click and drag that back to frame 1, and then click off, click it again and drag frame 11 to frame 12 in the same way. And now you've got a sort of draw animation, which is great. So we'll save that as weapon underscore draw. And now it's time to export all of these animations and put them into the engine. They're looking good enough. So first open weapon underscore ref. So first we want to export the reference pose. So go to File, Export All, and file type FBX export. Create a new folder inside animations and call it export. Now the options to the right are quite important. Smoothing groups have to be on, smooth mesh has to be on, triangulate should be on, animation has to be on, bake animation has to be on, and resample has to be on. You should probably also tick deformed models and skins. So now just type in a name for it. I'm just going to call it the same thing as the .ma Maya file is called, weapon underscore ref. And now I'm going to go through and do this for every animation I've made so far. So I'll load up weapon underscore idle, export all, same settings as weapon underscore idle. It will have a warning, but you can ignore it, it doesn't really mean anything. Since we're resampling all the frames anyway, it doesn't matter. Then weapon fire, export all, underscore fire. Same error, it'll be there on all of them. Weapon put down. Typoed that. And finally weapon underscore draw. So they're all there now, all exported. So we can quit Maya. So now you want to open up the Unreal Development Kit UDK editor. And we're going to be importing our mesh and our animations into the game engine. If for some reason the content browser isn't there by default automatically, you can press this icon here to open it, or press Ctrl Shift and F. So go to the bottom left of the content browser, Packages, expand UDK Game, expand Content, UT3, Weapons, and if you look inside any of these, in fact not any of these, just Link Gun, Rocket Launcher or Shock Rifle, you'll see they all follow the same directory structure, more or less, and we're going to be following the same one too. So that means we'll need anim, mesh, materials and effects. Mesh contains any meshes used by your weapon. We'll just need a first person mesh for now. Materials will be any materials used by it. Effects is usually particles and any special materials used by your weapon. And anims is almost always just a single anim set, which is used in first person for your weapon. Most of them say anim and not anims, so our one's going to be called anim, not anims as well. It's not particularly important, this is just to help with your organisation really. So small errors and inconsistencies aren't really too much of a problem. Anyway, right click on weapons and press import. Navigate to your My First Weapon UDK folder, animations, export, and then import the ref. Change package from wp_all to wp_my_first_weapon. The grouping should be mesh for this one, and it should be SK, which stands for skeletal mesh, _ WP, which stands for weapon, _ my first weapon, and then _1p, which stands for first person. Import animation should not be checked, combine meshes should be checked, and the rest of the options are more or less fine by default. So press OK. And you've got your weapon in a sort of base pose in the anim set editor. Now close that down, and now in the blank grey space around your skeletal mesh, if you want to right click new anim set, you want this to be in the same package as the mesh WP My First Weapon. The grouping for this one should be anim, and the name should be K_WP _my first weapon _1p _base. Okay. Now as you can see, that isn't our arms, so from the mesh menu we'll have to select SK_my first weapon _1p. In the top left, go to the anim tab, and in the top left again, go to File, Import FBX Animation, and first import idle. Put on loop and play. Loops this button, plays this button. You can see we've got the breathing animation we made earlier working in Engine. Now import all of the other animations, so put down, draw, and finally fire. Right, that looks good. Now we just have to rename all of the sequences so that UDK recognises them. If you look at any other weapon, for example the link gun, you'll see that all animations are called the same thing. Weapon idle, weapon fire, weapon equip, like shock rifle uses the same animation names. So by default all weapons in UDK have to use the same names. So you'll want to rename all of your ones to match the defaults. So rename weapon_draw to weapon equip. Note the capitalization and the lack of underscore. And do this for every animation, so weapon fire with the same capitalization and no underscore. Weapon put down, make sure there's a capital D on down. And finally, weapon idle. Alright, that's all looking good. Now, if you take a look at the shock rifle, you'll see it's rotated differently from My First Weapon. So you'll want to match that by changing the rot origin. So go back to My First Weapon and expand rotation origin in the bottom left tab mesh. You want to change yaw from -90 to 180 degrees, and now you'll see it matches the shock rifle, which is good. So now we can close that down, and now we can save our package. you want to save this to content, UT3 weapons, and just save it with all of the rest of the weapons as WP myfirstweapon.upk. Once you save that, it should appear in the same place and grouping as all the other weapons. So here it is. If you right click and fully load it, it'll remember it's anim and mesh, which is good. Oh yeah, and there's one more thing you have to do in the animation set editor, which is to tell it where the muzzle flash is. So to do that, you press this button here, the socket manager, which looks like a sort of arrow pointing at a red thing. Press new socket, choose the bone where you want the socket to appear, which is weapon muzzle flash, and the socket's name should be muzzle flash socket. Again, this is something you can change in code, but by default all UDK weapons use this as where muzzle flashes appear from. And then you can preview a muzzle flash by going back to the content browser. Use the shock rifle muzzle flash for now, so we'll expand shock rifle, choose particles and find P shock rifle MF alt, which is the muzzle flash used for the alt fire of the shock rifle. And if we press this little green arrow next to preview particle system, it will flash up, but you'll see it's coming out of the side, whereas it should be facing straight down. So we'll change yaw to -90 to fix that. So press the green button to play it again. As you can see, it's got the correct orientation now. So that's done. You can close the socket manager. Now there's one more thing we have to do before we close the UDK editor, which is to take note of the path of the mesh and anim. So open up a new notepad and write WP underscore myfirstweapon dot mesh and then dot sk underscore WP underscore myfirstweapon underscore 1p. And as you can see, that's the package name followed by the grouping followed by the object name. And now we'll do the same thing for our anim set. WP underscore myfirstweapon dot anim dot sk dot k even underscore WP underscore myfirstweapon underscore 1p underscore base. And now we can close the UDK editor. Now I've taken note of that. So now go to your myfirstweapon underscore UDK folder we made at the start and copy the two .uc files. Open a new Explorer window and navigate to wherever you've got UDK installed, which is normally by default C/UDK. Go to the correct version number for you. Go to development, SRC, which stands for source, UT game content, classes, and paste the two files. Now if you open up first weapon in Notepad, you'll see this is all the internal stuff that the game needs to know how your weapon works and what it should do when it fires and everything. Normally you'd want to set up Visual Studio or Notepad++ or something to edit scripts with, but for this tutorial and the simple edits we'll be making, just regular Notepad will suffice. Now select the text after skeletal mesh equals skeletal mesh in between the quotations and replace that path with the one you wrote down earlier. And then do the same for the anim set 0 equals anim set. Put your new anim set in between the quotations. And now save that. Now we start a new UDK editor. It'll tell you scripts are outdated and ask you if you'd like to rebuild. Say yes and then wait for that to build. Don't worry if this takes a while, it can do on some machines. Should be green, success, 0, 0 warnings. When that's done, start up UDK editor again. that's loaded, you can go to File, Open, and open up DMDeck, which is a nice already completed map provided with the Unreal Development Kit that we can use to test our weapon. In the content browser, open up the Actor Classes tab, expand Pickups, Weapon, UT Weapon Pickup Factory, click that, and then drag it in. I'm going to put it in the middle of the bridge so it's nice and easy to access. Double click that, or click it once and press F4, and change the UT Weapon Pickup Factory Weapon Pickup class to UT_first weapon, and then hit F8. So now we run up to the bridge and pick up our new weapon. As you can see, the position is looking pretty good, more or less how it looked in Maya. The breathing animation's working, holster's working, draw's working, fire's working, but it's a bit slow, and that's because it dynamically calculates how long the animation should be depending on how fast the fire rate is, so we could turn that up to compensate. And add some bots. As you can see, it's pretty good. It acts more or less the same as the shock rifle. A bit stronger than the shock rifle. Anyway, that's enough of that for now. Yeah, so that worked more or less as expected, but it was quite boring, so now we can tweak the weapon to be more like what we want it to be like. So I'm going to save this map as dmdeck_2, and this is just a temporary map so we can quickly test our weapon without having to type in a long command to spawn the weapon in our hands, without having to launch the editor and adding this weapon spawn point every time. So I'll close the editor down now. Save selected. And go back to our weapon script. Now there's quite a lot of stuff you can change here. And while it all looks fairly daunting at first, it's actually quite simple when you break it down. So here you can see earlier the muzzle flash socket I said was predefined. This is where you can change it, so you can change this to whatever you called your muzzle flash socket. This is where you choose what particle effect plays when the weapon fires. Here you could change what animation plays when you fire the weapon for primary and secondary fire, and you can also change some more fun variables here, like how the weapon acts in gameplay. So I'm going to turn the amount of ammo up by 10, so you'll have 120. I'm going to change it so it does slightly less damage, but to make up for it, it fires much faster, pretty much the fastest it can fire, and if it hits an enemy it will knock them flying. That all seems pretty good. I'll make the secondary fire really fast as well by changing the fire interval to a very low number. So just mess around and make some changes. You don't have to copy mine exactly. But just start off with something simple. So save your weapon again, and this time instead of launching the UDK editor, you can just launch the UDK game. Say yes, you want to rebuild the scripts, and wait for that. When that's done, close it and launch the UDK game again. Go to instant action and change the map. Make sure you don't want to go on deck, you want to go on deck 2 and start game. So I'm going to run along to the bridge again and pick up our modified weapon. As you can see, it's changed. Now fires much faster. Has the ability to knock players back, but it runs out of ammo really quickly, which you'd kind of expect with such a fast firing rate. So now I'm going to show you how you can give it unlimited ammo. So now I'm going to show an example of overriding a function, because I think that it runs out of ammo too fast and I'd like it to have unlimited ammo. So I'll just write in function ConsumeAmmo and then all this. Like basically, you wouldn't be typing this yourself. If you're overriding a function, you'd be copying it from another file, so don't worry, I've just pasted this in. I'll leave this in the description for you to copy paste as well, because it's fairly long. This is what the game will refer to when it wants to take away some ammo, so it will probably call this code after every shot. And normally there'd probably be some code here which roughly says something like ammo equals ammo minus 1, which would mean ammo just becomes 1 less every time you fire. But seeing as there's nothing here at all, it means that every time it tries to take away ammo, it won't do anything. I'll just and you can add comments. 2 forward slashes is a comment in most languages, including UDK script. And here I'll type don't consume ammo. So I know why I've put this function here. You can also put comments about how your weapon functions above this block of variables. So I could write something like primary fire is really fast, secondary fire is slower, and then I'll quickly tweak that to be true. So secondary fire will take 1 second between shots instead of 0.1. So yeah, let's test our infinite ammo function. We'll set the ammo count from 120 down to 1 on all counts, because it doesn't really matter how much ammo it has, because that one piece of ammo will never get used if this works correctly. So launch the UDK game, rebuild your scripts, close that down. So now we'll load up the UDK game one last time. Go on instant action, set the map to deck 2 and start the game. Now again we run out to the bridge, pick up our weapon, and as you can see it now has unlimited ammo. The one in the corner is never going down. The slow firing secondary fire is terrible, but the primary fire more than makes up for it. And that more or less sums up that edit. Anyway, I think that's probably enough for this tutorial. There's a lot of extra variables you can mess around with in here. You could change the sound effects to something more appropriate. You could change the crosshair. Could change the field of view. There's all sorts of things here, and I'm going to be doing a follow-up video which covers some more stuff. I'm going to cover how to add your own sounds, how to create your own muzzle flash particles, might do how to create your own projectile. Yeah, so have fun with what you've learned here today. Goodbye.